Before we dive into this gripping and action-packed story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest content. Now let's jump right in. In Sicily, Lorenzo drove with his son to a remote winery, arriving to find that several men had already been killed. Lorenzo instructed his son to stay in the car. Accompanied by a guard, Lorenzo entered the building, encountering more bodies before reaching the basement, where two guards held Robert at gunpoint. Lorenzo questioned Robert's intentions, and Robert revealed he was there to reclaim something that didn't belong to Lorenzo. Impressed by Robert's ability to track him down, Lorenzo warned that Robert wouldn't leave the winery alive. Robert responded by challenging Lorenzo's security, and within seconds, he swiftly eliminated the guards, using one of their weapons. As Lorenzo tried to crawl away, Robert shot him with a shotgun, took a key from Lorenzo's belt and exited the building. Outside, Robert aimed his gun at Lorenzo's son but chose to spare him and walked away. However, as Robert was leaving, the boy fired at him. Robert then realized he had been shot in the back. Eventually, Robert collapsed and was found by a local police officer, Gio. Gio took Robert to a local doctor named Enzo, who helped patch him up. When Robert awoke, he couldn't answer Enzo's question about whether he was a good man or a bad man. Nevertheless, Enzo carefully oversaw Robert's recovery, and by the third day, Robert was able to walk with a cane and explore the town. Robert visited a local cafe where he ordered tea, but the server, Amina, brought him coffee instead. Later, Gio arrived with his daughter, Gabby, and handed Robert the keys to his car before leaving. Back at Enzo's place, Robert made an anonymous call to the CIA's Financial Operations Group, speaking with Agent Collins. He reported the discovery of a suspicious winery in Sicily that was importing wine from Syria. Over the next few days, Robert became familiar with the locals and business owners in the marketplace. One day he noticed a gang extorting money from the shop owners. Robert observed as the gang left, warning Angelo they would return for the money. The following day, Robert visited Angelo's shop to buy fish, but Angelo refused payment, saying it was an honor to serve a friend of Enzo. Meanwhile, CIA agents, including Collins, uncovered illegal narcotics and millions in cash at the Sicilian winery. Surprised by the discovery, Emma and her colleague Frank continued searching for more information. Enzo examined Robert's wounds, and Robert asked why Enzo hadn't reported him to the police. Enzo replied that his uncertainty about whether Robert was a good man was itself a sign of being a good person. Vincent, who had just finished praying, met his brother Marco outside the church and told him to prepare for bigger plans. In Alante, Robert packed his belongings and was about to leave when he noticed a commotion outside. The townspeople were shocked to see Angelo's shop on fire, and Robert spotted the gang watching from afar. Later, he helped Angelo clean up the damage while Gio reviewed CCTV footage and began identifying the van's owner. While having tea at Amina's cafe, Robert noticed Emma taking a picture of him. She tried to question him about the winery, but Robert gave vague responses. Emma told him to stay close and left, addressing him by name as she did. As Gio went to pick up Gabby, he received a troubling call saying she had left school early. He quickly asked the teacher and learned that an officer had picked her up. Gio rushed home, only to find his wife and daughter held captive by Marco and his men. Marco, seeking revenge for Gio's investigation into the van, threatened Gio's family before leaving. As Gio left Enzo's office, Robert noticed his bandages and asked Enzo about them. Enzo explained that such incidents were common in their town and beyond, due to criminal organizations like the Camorra. Robert jogged to the church to meet with Collins. He asked if she believed in miracles, and she replied that she didn't. Collins then informed Robert that he wasn't a person of interest in the incident in Sicily, and confirmed that Lorenzo, the Sicilian farmer, had been on Interpol's most wanted list for a decade. When Collins asked why Robert had chosen her to receive the anonymous tip, he deflected, suggesting she should focus on why Sicily was being targeted for smuggling activities. Collins promised to investigate further and expressed hope that Robert would explain his choice in their next meeting. That evening, Marco interrupted Gio's family dinner, ordering him to travel to Somalia to acquire some boats. Marco then noticed Robert sitting at a nearby table and went over to warn him not to interfere. Robert calmly suggested that Marco take his friends and conduct their business elsewhere. Marco laughed it off, but Robert applied pressure to a nerve in Marco's hand, forcing him to comply. Robert also instructed Marco to leave his firearm behind. Marco left, visibly angered, and later ranted about killing Robert. As he reached for a friend's gun, a van crashed into them. Robert appeared and subdued Marco after a brief struggle, leaving the scene. The police discovered the bodies the next morning. In Rome, Collins received a call from Frank about a recent station bombing, noting that the money used in the attack was traced back to the narcotics found at the winery. Collins took charge of gathering more information about the internal networks involved. She met with the chief of police in Naples to request permission to interview several men, which was granted except for one. Meanwhile, Chief Bella visited Vincent, informing him about the CIA's arrival. He advised Vincent to halt his operations, believing Collins would soon uncover his activities. However, Vincent refused to back down, and instead ordered Bella to find Marco's killer. Angry at Vincent's stubbornness, Bella reminded him of his insignificance in comparison, which enraged Vincent. Vincent cut off Bella's hand, left a threat, and had his men escort him to his car. Collins was later informed of the attack on Bella, and Robert called to tell her that the Camorra, not terrorists, were behind the incidents. As Emma approached her escort, an explosion occurred, wounding everyone nearby. Collins was rushed to the hospital where Frank assured her he would handle the remaining tasks. Vincent took Gio and his family hostage, publicly demanding the town of Alamon turn over the person responsible for his brother's death. He shot Gio's ear and threatened to kill his family if they didn't reveal the culprit. Vincent's plan was interrupted by Robert's shouts, challenging him to show himself. Robert slowly emerged, offering his life in exchange for the others, but Vincent refused, intending to make an example of him. Just as Vincent was about to shoot Robert, Enzo intervened, and the townspeople began recording the confrontation on their phones. Vincent was alerted to the approaching police and fled the scene. He planned to kill Robert the next day but was caught off guard when Robert infiltrated his home and systematically eliminated his guards. A drop of blood awoke Vincent, who discovered Simone's dead body and armed himself. Terrified, Vincent wandered through the house, finding his men dead. In a panic, he fired wildly until Robert knocked him out. Vincent woke up tied down, with Robert warning him that he had 6 minutes before a drug would stop his heart. Robert untied him, and Vincent tried to flee, but Robert pursued him until his heart gave out. At the hospital, Collins watched news reports, celebrating the successful operation against the Camorra. Robert visited her and she thanked him for the call that had saved her from severe injury in the explosion. When she noticed Robert carrying a bag of cash, she assumed he had stolen it in Sicily, but he explained it was connected to Dyer, who had lost his pension in a cyber attack. Collins realized that Robert had followed the trail to the winery in Sicily where he killed Lorenzo and his men, took the vault key, and retrieved the exact amount owed to Dyer. When Collins asked if Dyer was his friend, Robert simply said no and left the cash with her. Collins later traveled to Boston to give the money to Dyer and his wife, who were relieved they wouldn't lose their home. They thanked Emma, who credited the mysterious stranger who had made it possible. Back at her office, Emma received a package containing her mother's diary and a note from Robert. It was then revealed that Emma was the daughter of Brian and Susan Plummer, Robert's old CIA friends. Meanwhile, in Alanti, Robert joined the locals in celebrating their football team's victory. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more recaps.